The bull case scenario we discussed for Bitcoin over the last couple months played out perfectly. And now it's the question, what's next? Beginning of April, there were signs in the market, which I said back then, like, this is pretty obvious. It's scary, but it was really, really, really screaming, get in. And the same type of indicators are not gone yet. In fact, for most of the altcoin market, they are still more in the works of setting it up. So I think that there's still a decent move to come, but we have to question, like, hey, you know, pullbacks at a certain point, nothing is up only, right? Will there be a decent pullback at some point? How low might that go? And what could potentially be the next move, right? So let's take a look. Welcome to the FOMO Factory. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn the bell notification on. And again, if you want to see my portfolio, do a one-on-one call with me to go over yours a little bit. There's a link to the Alpha Factory down below. A lot of happy members right there. So do check it out. It's the first 3 days are free, by the way. So feel free to step in. So yeah, Bitcoin, man, new all-time highs. The all-time high, 111,878 according to the index on the weekly time frame. On the daily, it's always a little different. It's the same. So where is the potential next point of rejection? And let's start with Bitcoin, and then we go over altcoins, right? The reason I do that is if Bitcoin doesn't look good, then yeah, I mean, then what the fuck? Why are we gonna look at altcoins, right? So you might say, like, hey, if you look on the daily chart, you have this peak right here, and there's another peak right here, and this might be an interesting point of resistance. That could be the case, although I'm not fully convinced because of two reasons that this line will be the reason. One, 2 times doesn't make a trend yet. And the second reason is that we have seen this setup more often, right? This was to the downside, by the way, but however, whenever it did break out, it was pretty huge actually, right? And it got rejected from it a couple times, but hey, that was in a downward trend. Here, we went to the upside, so we had a high, we had another high, and yeah, fair enough. Around that area, we did have some resistance, right? It depends to what wick you are taking it. You can also draw it like this, right? So that's always a little tomato. But overall, this was nothing more than a couple days, let's say, well, 1.5 week basically of, you know, consolidation before we just shot up to new levels. And that went from 50K to 73K. Right, and we had the same kind of structure here as well, but overall, this line didn't mean that much, as Bitcoin just went sideways for way longer and then just decided to, you know, leave that all behind. However, it's something to keep in mind. Now, what I do think is pretty interesting, you know, if you look on the lower time frames, you see that Bitcoin was sitting in this rising wedge, and yeah, I mean, it broke out to the upside in this case, right? So even a retest of, let's say 108, give or take, would on the shorter time frame still be bullish, right? And I know it's psychological. We are above 110, and seeing 109 or 108 will feel very bearish. But apart from how it feels, it is a 2% correction. Yeah, I mean, yeah, right. That like 2% corrections happen daily, pretty much. Now, what's in my opinion also pretty interesting, if we remove all of this and we take this not on a log scale but on a regular scale, and you look at Bitcoin at the very, very, very high time frames, what you'll notice is that if you take a trend line from the 2017 high over the 2021 highs, and again, it depends a little bit, of course, on how you draw it, because you either take this wick or you take this wick, or you choose to not take wicks at all. But again, it's a little like, whatever. Overall, this is what we are seeing right now. Right. And we kind of got a rejection right there in December. So where's that level? Well, that level is sitting at, 114. But it again depends a little on how you draw that line exactly, right? What you'll notice though is that this is not just a short-term area of resistance. This goes back for more than like, well, almost a decade, right? The way you look at it depends on it. If you, based on this, are going to be bullish or bearish, of course, right? You can say like, well, here it started, and here it got rejected, and here again, and here again. So this is a rejection area, and that could be that we get a rejection right there, right? And maybe at the end of the year we try again, and then it's sitting at 122K. That would be the bear case scenario, I think. The bull case scenario is, hey, there's support, there's resistance, and at a certain point, supports and resistances, they break, right? I mean, that's what it is. If we break that, then we break a macro resistance level. And then I think if we can really close a month above, let's say 114, 115, I think then that is the sign that there is a huge breakout coming. Now, also, if you take a look at Bitcoin on the weekly, so we step down the time frame a little bit, and you take FIB extension, right? And you look how the last move did from wick, top wick to top wick bottom. Yeah. You'll see that, you know, it got rejected around the 2.618, and hey, we're still not really there yet, right? We're still not really there yet, but it's pretty clear to me that, you know, once we broke this previous high, then it was just straight up flying to the 2.618, right? So again, we are not there yet. Give it time. We just tried. Once we really break this area, the 2.618, just like the last move, comes in at $167,000. But first we have the 1.618, right? And that's about 130K. So that's longer time frame, weeks and months to play out. But on the larger time frame, that would be the first target, basically, right? The first target. Now, about potential pullbacks. I mean, is Bitcoin going to see a pullback from here? Yes, of course, right? Everybody that owns Bitcoin is in a profit, right? Except if you bought an hour ago at the all-time high. So, okay, maybe not everybody, but pretty much everybody is in a profit. And you can see that here as well, supply in profit loss. Yeah, at the moment, supply in profit, 100%, in loss, 0%, which is actually quite funny, because if you take a look at this and if we remove a little bit of noise, right? So you say you put a 30-day SMA moving average on it, you can see that every single time that crosses, so that there are more people in loss than profit, that typically marks pretty much the bottom. Again, if you want a DCA in the next bear market, this is definitely an indicator you should take a look at. But we'll talk about it by then, right? It's nothing, you know, bear markets are pretty much irrelevant at this point, right? So, you know, will people take profit right now? Yeah, probably, right? However, if I think, like I was thinking like, hey, I'm European. Am I going to take profits? No. Right? Why? Well, if you look at the dollar is really weak right now, right? And you can see that like this. If I exchange $1 right now for euros, I'm getting 88 cents. Right? And it used to be like pretty much the same at a certain point. So for the Americans out there, yeah, congrats to you. Bitcoin made a new all-time high. But when it comes to the euro, yeah, it didn't. Right? So maybe that's also a reason for a lot of Europeans, and there are a lot of us, okay, that we maybe say like, yeah, okay, great, but based on all-time highs, there's no reason for us to get out of Bitcoin yet. And at a certain point, the dollar will strengthen, and then the Europeans will get more money out of their money. And that would be a decent time to take profits, right? Because now it's just costing me like pretty much 11%. Yeah, I'm already paying enough taxes over here. I'm not going to do that, right? So on a psychological level, I can understand that maybe more people think like that and they feel like, no, I'm not going to take my profits just yet. But a lot of people will, and pullbacks are, is part of the game. Now, how low could it potentially go? Yeah, let's say this is somewhat of a local top. If we go back to the 382, right? This is a kind of big time frame, right? So this is not happening. Well, it's good, but it's not that I'm suggesting this should happen today or tomorrow. But the 382 is $98,000, right? That would be if we get a big pullback in the market. That could be a level, and if we get like a slightly more, I don't want to say a crash, but slightly more than a big pullback, then I can see it into the golden zone of the 0.5 and the 0.618, which is 93 up to 88. But for now, I don't think we need to think about these levels anytime soon. That's down another 15, 20%. Yeah, again, I do think, though, that if that happens, a lot of people, again, will say that it's over. But you have to realize, Bitcoin is known for these type of pullbacks, right? And this market so far is absolutely holding back on big pullbacks. We have seen so far, Bitcoin, it just shoots up, pulls back, ranges, shoots up, pullbacks, ranges, right? That's the steps that it takes. And these bigger pullbacks, 20% from wick to wick, right? 20%. This in total was 33%. This one was 31%, right? And yeah, you cannot go through a bull market without 20-30% pullbacks, and Bitcoin just proved like, hey, we just had one, right? So that just happens. But hey, could it be that we first go to that first FIP level of 130K, and then get a 20-30% pullback? That will kind of take us back to the 100K region or so. But again, that's all good. If you look at Bitcoin and how it's moving, then you see this white line right here. It's been holding this as support really, really, really well. So even going back to 100K is way above this trend line. If it would have to happen somewhere, this coming month, then it will be way above it, right? If it has to break this real bull market trend line, then we have to go pretty soon into the lower 80s, right? And yeah, again, it could happen, but it's far from here, right? Speculation to the fullest, of course. Now, let's talk like I said about the setups that we discussed. So like I said earlier as well, if you look at Bitcoin on the monthly, right? So this is a big time frame, aka it takes a long time to play out, but also huge moves. If you look at the RSI crossed, the purple is RSI and the yellow is the RSI moving average, basically. And whenever that crosses, it just says like, hey, we are higher than what we are on average. I'm Dutch, I'm always higher than average, but this RSI is then higher than what it is on average. And that indicates a real bullish momentum, a wave of bulls, right? That we're getting, like the Spanish people, I don't know. And it crossed, right, not too long ago in April, the beginning of April. And that's why I said, like, hey, I mean, this is what we did not see a lot. And every time it crossed to the upside on the monthly, that indicated huge moves, right? And hey, it just crossed. We have a long way to go, right? It could also be that it at a certain point cools down and does this, and then maybe retest that moving average and then goes up, maybe breaks to the downside again. But for now, we are on the bigger time frames in a full bull territory for Bitcoin, right? Also, no flashing green RSI yet, like this bull market, this bull market, this bull market, or this bull market. We are not even close to that. Even if you say that RSI is diminishing, then we still have a huge way to go, right? In the last bull market, the RSI was as high as where it is right now. was in October 2020, right? October 2020 was here, right? It was here. That's where our RSI is today. And yeah, there we went from 10, 15K to basically 70, right? So I'm not saying that it will do a 6, 7X from here, but I'm saying there's a lot of fuel in the tank left, right? And why do I talk about Bitcoin in this video quite a lot? Because this is the setup for alts. Okay. So let's talk about that. The setup for alts is better, of course, if there's more fuel in the tank. Why do altcoins run at a certain point? Because they take liquidity from what's already in the market, right? It's not necessarily that, you know, someone from the outside comes into the market and pumps the living crap out of altcoins. It also happens, but I think the biggest reason is that people from outside get into the market, pump money in the market, whether it may be in Bitcoin, Ethereum, or at a certain point in stables, and then convert it into altcoins, right? And then, yeah, if you see the Bitcoin dominance go down, that's why you have an alt season. Now, you have to realize, though, that the last time we saw an alt season, if you overlay the Bitcoin dominance, was here, right? December 2020. But December 2020, Bitcoin opened that month at 20K, and the highest of that month was 30K, right? So let's take the average 25K. Here, alt season started when there was 25K fuel in Bitcoin's tank, right? Now we have 110K fuel in Bitcoin's tank, and whatever how high it might be when alt season really confirms, right? There is a lot more money. And you say like, yeah, there are also a lot more altcoins, definitely. But the ratio between the real altcoins still sucking up liquidity that are new and the money that's now there in the market, that ratio is looking really good right now. I'm not talking about the 40 million rock pump fun coins, right? That's not where the liquidity is going. So this indicates to me that yes, the people that are been waiting for altcoins, they have to have a lot of patience, and therefore a lot of people said, it's dead right now. But the people that are saying that it's dead right now, I think that these people are not going to be really happy, because it's pretty clear to me how much more money is sitting in Bitcoin right now, right? So we only need like 20% of the last alt season to pump altcoins just as hard on the dollar pair like we did last alt season. So even if you think that alt seasons are diminished with like 80% or so, you can still see the same as last cycle, if you know what I mean, because it takes a lot less liquidity from Bitcoin. I mean, if you take 100,000 Satoshis outside of Bitcoin right now and you pump it into a microcap, then that microcap will respond way harder, of course, than 100 sats right here, because that was just worth less money, a lot less money, right? So yeah, that's indicating something really bullish to me, actually. Now, a little like, well, you know, when can we see that? Look, I don't know. Look, we can look at multiple things, and I discussed that a lot, right? But what I said, like, I think maybe a year ago on this channel, right? The last time alt season started, right? This is where alt season started. Bitcoin was sitting at, yeah, again, 20, 30K, and after that right away at 40, right? So that's pretty much twice as high, depends on which part of the month you're taking it, right? As the previous all-time high. And that's when alt season really started. So if you ask right now, like, wow, Bitcoin is already so much above its all-time high and altcoins are not, is that different? I mean, the last cycle, again, we have to go above the previous all-time high like twice pretty much before we saw it. Here, alt season started in, February, really in March 2017, right? And that's where Bitcoin itself was sitting, pretty much at the all-time high, right? So compared to this cycle, that is different. Compared to this cycle, it is not. So is there really something to make out of it? I don't know, but it's something to keep in mind, right? Like, we should not be judgmental, at least like, well, Bitcoin's already high and altcoins are not, it's dead. Like, I don't think it's that simple. But who knows, right? Now, something else really cool, actually, as well, is that I showed that monthly RSI on Bitcoin, right? That crossed already. If you look at the total crypto market, so everything, right, in the top 125, you see that the monthly RSI also just had a cross, slightly less than Bitcoin. The Bitcoin cross was a little more confirmed. This one happened more in between April and May. So it's a little laggy, of course, right? Because altcoins come after Bitcoin, and this also includes alt. So this is looking really good. Time before that it happened was here. Time before that happened was here, 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 and here, right? It happened 5 times before, as far as this chart goes, at least, right? What happened to the total crypto market? Here it went from 130 billion to 400 billion. The total crypto market 3x. That's sick, right? Here it was a little weird actually, right? Because we went from 170 all the way to 300. So 2x. Yeah, not look, still fantastic. Like if we 2x right now, right? But then COVID came, right? And yeah, that was short-lived because after that, the market said like, fuck that, another cross, right? And it got right back up. And where did that wick go? It's just there. So it went from also 170, give or take. Yeah, that was a full bull, right? And the last time, or the time, one and a half last time, second last time it happened, we didn't get a really big reaction right away. But we went from, give or take, 900 billion to 1.2 trillion, cooled off for a long time. RSI retested successfully and then had that second leg all the way to 2.7 trillion. So again, a 3x. And we saw it one more time happening in October 2024. And the wick was here and there. It went from 2 trillion to almost 4 trillion. So even during a time of COVID where we had a pretty big ass black swan, the market still 2x'd, right? And we just saw that cross. Now, it depends a little where you're taking it from. You can say, hey, we're taking it from here, right? And in that case, the market already so far did a 48%. But still, if you already include the move that we had, it's a very, very, very small move yet compared to every other move, right? Including COVID. So I think that we should give this enough time, actually, and then we'll be seeing a pretty sick move, actually. If you look at the total 3, we also just had that cross, right? So it's not just Bitcoin. Okay, it's not just Bitcoin. If you remove Bitcoin and ETH, and even ETH has been on a pretty decent run, but even if you remove these two, you see that the altcoin market itself also said like, hey, cross, right? And I forgot to check one off, but that was actually here, right? Also cross to the upside. And if you look at the total 3, the altcoin market, again, cross, huge lag, cross, huge lag. These were basically the only 2 big lags so far that we have seen in the altcoin market. And we just got that cross again. So yeah. And even here in 2021, the altcoin market responded very well. And here it started off the full bull market. So there are so far, no examples of where it got invalid or it went down, right? Or even had a small move up. Like every single time led to a big move. Again, not a guarantee, but not something to ignore, right? If you look at others, that's where the degens are, right? That's everything outside of the top 10 because who cares about investing in high caps? Cool. Look at others. This is interesting because this did not cross yet, but it's heading into the right direction, right? And yeah, I mean, anything could happen. It could be that it will throw a curveball. So I don't want to cheer too soon, but this looks really good. And yeah, once this crosses, we can see the altcoin market probably catching up. right? We can see it catching up. We had a similar cross. Let me see, right here, and here. Let's take the last three just to speed it up a little bit. First leg of this bull market, second leg of this bull market, and this one right here was like kind of the second leg of the 2021 bull market. So again, interesting, and that would line up probably with the fact that we have some huge resistance here for the altcoin market, right? And yeah, that would definitely break that. So I think that looks pretty interesting. Now, look. If you look at the total, you can see like, hey, money is flowing in the market. It's not just that Bitcoin is going up because it's sucking the liquidity out of ETH or alts or whatever. The total crypto market actually went up with 50%. And to put it a little in perspective, guys, in just less than 2 months, the total crypto market gained $1.1 trillion. Just like that, more than $1 trillion flew into the altcoin market in less than 2 months. $1 trillion, like what the hell? Like, that's really sick. That's a lot. That's a lot, man. Here in November, it was like this move was insane, by the way. This was the same amount, but in 1 month, right? Yeah, now we get it more slow and slow. It's a little less explosive and therefore maybe a little more sustainable than this move. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the total crypto market, look, if you look at Bitcoin, it's the same structure basically, right? And if you look at the total crypto market, yeah, in my opinion, this is looking pretty fine, right? Go to the upside, go to the downside, go to the upside, go to the downside. And if it ranges like that, what takes months, when do you buy and when do you sell? Look, when it comes to alts, I would say if you're in with Bitcoin, like, man, maybe just only buy. Don't even think about selling. Maybe in the bear a bit, but when it comes to alts, I think most people they got wrecked by over trading. They see a candle like this and it's over and it goes up again and they'll be like, oh, buy back, and before you know it, man, you ran out of cash, right? If you look at something like this, you could actually also say like, you know what, I'm gonna buy not often, but when I buy, I make my purchases big and I make them at a good point, right? Buy to the downside of the range, whether you time it or not, right? And buy here again, right? And maybe offload when we are at the top of the range. And not fully, right? Because, hey, what if you sell everything right here and we break out, right? At a certain point, that I can see that happen. Yeah, and even if we don't break out, then at the end of the year, this range is sitting at $5-6 trillion, right? That's if we keep ranging. Just keep ranging, right? Nothing crazy. Just keep ranging $5 trillion for the total crypto market. Is that weird? I don't know. If you look at the fair value at the end of the year, you see that the fair value comes in at $5 trillion, right? Now, why am I saying like, well, every bull market, we go way above that fair value, right? And that's not a guarantee that we are doing it right now, but like, if I have to place my bets somewhere, then I'm not saying like, well, blue, purple. Like, go with the blue until it's purple, right? Or whatever. So that's my minimum target, I would say, 5 trillion, right? And you might now be like, well, $5 trillion, that's 60% from here. Well, if my portfolio goes up 60%, yeah, it's nice, but hey, it's crypto. I should expect a little more than that, maybe. Yeah, but again, the dominance for Bitcoin is very high right now. If it's sitting at $5 trillion and the dominance goes down with maybe just a little bit, like that's pretty insane. That's pretty insane, let alone if we get alt, like again, I've been talking about alt season more and more lately. And why? Because I have a base case and I'm sticking to that, right? Whether it takes a month longer than I hope or expect or not, I have my base case, right? But even if we don't, for some reason, which I don't see actually, but even if we don't see an alt season like we usually do, and it just goes down here, whatever, right? You know how explosive that is for altcoins on the dollar pair. If Bitcoin even stays at this level, let alone goes higher, that's insane. That's insane, right? Last time the Bitcoin dominance was here was in July 2024. If we look at others' dominance, right? The altcoin dominance, July 2024, that was here. So that was pretty much 10%, right? I mean, if the total crypto market goes to 5-6 trillion, that's $500-600 billion for the low cap altcoin market. That's not 60%, right? That's a full 2x from here, right? And I'm speaking real bear case scenarios, right? Just ranging, nothing crazy, no, like this time is a little different, etc. in the negative way, right? But even that will be a new all-time high, and new all-time highs for the altcoin market lead to retail inflows, right? Which will pump it even more. Plus, these are only top 125. I have a lot of examples of coins that, you know, when this thing here did like a 5x, I saw a lot of coins in my portfolio doing a 15x. Right, but that could lead to massive retail inflows because we all know, and if we look at the social metrics right now, Bitcoin new all-time high. So retail must come and watch, right? Oh, nobody cares, right? You know, there's no retail. Still, there's no retail. Why not? Because retail doesn't care about Bitcoin. They feel like, yeah, whatever. Why should I buy Bitcoin for 100K? Like, that's not how it works, right? No, retail. Really, like here also it ranges very low, also close to zero. Here it was zero in this bull market. And when did the real retail breakout actually happen? In November 2000 or December 2020, it started to break out, right? And if we look back at December 2020 for the altcoin market, when was that? December 2020 was here when the altcoin market really showed like, hey, we are in a steady uptrend, breaking all this previous support and even making new all-time highs, right? And that's where retail becomes interested. So, yeah, a lot of reasons to be long-term, in my opinion, very, very, very bullish. Again, Bitcoin dominance looks toppy as fuck. Ethereum dominance holding up right there, right? Big bounce. And even that on the monthly, that RSI break did not even, or the RSI cross did not even happen yet, right? And that also suggests to me like, okay, you know, let's give it a little more time. Bitcoin is already, look, to wrap it up, the setups for the altcoin market are already there. Like, hey, we are going to take the money. And Bitcoin is already showing like, okay, and we first get, you know, take that money from the outside, right? So the fuel, it's tanking in a good way, more fuel being added. And in the meantime, altcoins are showing like, okay, we're going to take that fuel soon, right? And that's spectacular. For the people that maybe stepped in crypto after 2021, yes, you can look back at charts, but the feeling that you get during such a pump, it is undescribable. Is that a word? It's I cannot describe it. How it is to see your altcoins pump that hard. And it is again, I think that this whole setup right here, what I'm talking about, is just as obvious as the setup that I discussed beginning of April, and it's now more getting, you know, towards the altcoin market. Yeah, and that's where you see these crazy gains happen. For example, which coin was there in the last Uniswap, for example? I don't know, right? If you look like, hey, Uniswap now as well, right? Ranging, fine. Right here, it didn't have that much history, but at a certain point, it was ranging, was also not the post-halving year yet. And as soon as everything started to break out, this is a weekly chart. Yes, you get 53% in a week, right? That's crazy. But and this is a high cap, right? It's not a crazy low cap. But the week after that, it adds another 8% to your 53% gained coin. And the week after that, it compounds with another 44%. The weeks after that, another 38. And yeah, that's so fucking nuts, right? How you go from basically $3 to $45 on a high cap in a matter of, a few months. Right. And again, I'm not saying that that will happen this time, but keep in mind that there is a very realistic chance that it will look somewhat the same. So yeah, I want to wrap it up right here. Thanks for watching. Do like the video if you like the video. Subscribe to the channel. And with all these altcoins, you know, there's always, and is this thing working? No, it's not working. I had a nice integration. Anyway, if you want to trade it somewhere where there's no KYC, where you can just go with every country, there's a link to WeX down below. It's an affiliate link. You get a little discount. I get a little discount. Win-win, all fine. It's just like Bybit, but accessible to everyone. And make sure that if you are on these exchanges, fix in time that you have your papers ready, right? That your bank account can show like where's the money coming from, because at a certain point you want to pay out to yourself and you don't want to wait for 4 weeks and have your money stuck in the middle of a blow off top maybe, and you know that sucks. So fix that. Prepare to be rich, right? Because it might happen, and if you're not prepared, then you know that's bad. So again, thanks for watching and have a nice day.